Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Scotts Plains Family Board of Education regular public meeting. This is the September 29, 2021 public session. Mr. Jones, will you please call roll?
Ms. Bauer?
Here.
Ms. Worrell?
Here.
Ms. Brody?
Here.
Ms. Mitchell? Ms. Sirianni?
Here.
Ms. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Winkler?
Here.
Mr. Murray? Dr. Kulakowski?
Here. Please join me in the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We just held executive session prior to coming out here in public. And at that meeting, we discussed the personnel agenda, the out-of-school suspension and detention report. We discussed the hip case and the legal status report. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Mascot, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Kulakowski. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. It is only the 14th day of school, and the board and I have so much information to share with you. The start of every school year is marked with its own successes and challenges. Some of you have experienced issues with transportation and your child's bus route. Christopher Jones, our BA, and Marisol Rodriguez, our transportation supervisor, have been working diligently to stabilize our transportation services while recognizing the challenges in the industry resulting from a bus driver shortage. Unfortunately, we continue to have individuals in our schools test positive for COVID-19. Our nurses work around the clock to complete the contact tracing to ensure our schools stay open. We understand how difficult it is for families when students are quarantined as a result of being in close contact. We are following the guidelines for the New Jersey Department of Health at this time, and we recognize that the 14-day quarantine is very difficult for kids to be out of school. We all want our kids in school, so that is something that we're working on, but we can't change the state guidelines. Besides these challenges, there are 4 more successes as we return to a more normal school year for our students. Seniors at the high school are now being permitted to leave for lunch during their block schedule. The PTA continues to support our students in their artistic endeavors through the promotion of the Reflection Art Program. Parent meetings, orientations, and virtual back-to-school nights are underway. We had a welcome picnic and parties at the elementary blacktops, school spirit days, family movie nights, book swaps and book fairs, and school pictures, just to name a few. Last evening, we took the first step in our exciting journey of strategic planning. 138 community members, parents, students, staff, and administrators came together to begin to build the scaffolding of what will be the district's strategic plan for 2022 to 2025. The next 2 strategic planning dates are on October 19th at 7 p.m. at the high school and November 16th at Terrell Middle School. If you'd like to participate, please email my office. Dr. Kulakowski, I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda this evening. This evening, we have an exciting announcement. Tonight, we'd like to honor an individual who lived in our community and served our country and our town. In order to do this, I would like Amy Winkler, the chairperson of Policy Committee, to first give us a report on policy.
Policy Committee has been looking at district policy. Policy Committee has been looking at district policy 7250, school and facility names. This policy reads, school buildings and separate school facilities, both on school grounds and within school buildings, shall be named only by formal action of the Board of Education. Naming schools and facilities, the board shall strive to honor the traditions and high ideals of this district and the community it serves. A school building or school facility may be named to memorialize the outstanding service of a school district employee or officer. The board welcomes the suggestions of members of the community in naming the school buildings and facilities, and may appoint a committee of interested persons to conduct appropriate studies and make recommendations for consideration.
Thank you. Now I would like to ask Tanya Williams, as chairperson of the Wellness and Equity Committee, can you please give a recommendation?
Thank you, Dr. Max. Tonight, I'm recommending that we change the name of Park Middle School to Malcolm E. Nettingham Middle School. We have Mr. Nettingham's family here tonight to talk about their father. Malcolm and Nettie Nettingham. Thank you.
Good evening. I had to ask a question first. How many minutes do I have? I could be short or I could be long. I prefer to be short. But first of all, it's an honor and it's humbling to know that this town of Scotch Plains is honoring my father, my sister, myself. We're the only children of my father, Malcolm Nettingham, who was a member of the illustrious, I'm very proud, African American Air Command Group, the Tuskegee Airmen. And it's very great to be here and see all these faces. And so thank you for inviting us. And I just want to read something to you that I just received in the mail a couple of days ago, if I can, about the freedom fighters, the Tuskegee Airmen, which my father was a member of. Before the Tuskegee Airmen, there were no black pilots in the U.S. military. In fact, few African Americans were allowed to serve in the prestigious military positions prior to 1941. They faced the same discrimination in the military as they did in everyday society. Military bases were segregated, there were separate officer clubs, the men were harassed and belittled, and others were just flat out denied entry to certain positions. It was simply the way things were then. But the men who would eventually become the Tuskegee Airmen didn't want it to be that way forever. They civilly fought against segregation every opportunity. Things like protesting the separate officers' clubs, less equal clubs, and removing ropes dividing movie theaters. They sat where they wanted to. However, they knew that the best way to advance equality was to be the best pilots the military had to offer. Because at the time, War departments stated that black men were inferior and didn't have the intelligence to even fly a plane, let alone pilot one in combat. But by the end of the war, the exploits became legendary, and many other men proudly told their tales of heroism. My father happened to be one of those men that told the story. So many days growing up, my father would tell my sister and myself about his exploits in the armed forces and how the black airborne were treated as second-class citizens. However, Malcolm happened to be part of a test. Malcolm is known as an original Tuskegee Airman because originally the Air Corps, each separate division of our fighting force, the Marines, the Navy, the Army, each had a flying branch. There was no such thing as the Air Force. It was only after World War II that the United States had what is known today as the Air Force. So, black Air Corpsmen or cadets trained separately from the white Air Corps or cadets. They slept different quarters, they ate different quarters, they did everything separately. However, there came a time when some of the politicians, such as Harry S. Truman, Eleanor Roosevelt, they pushed for the integration of the U.S. Armed Forces. It just so happens that my father was amongst the first five black cadets from an all-black unit that was selected to integrate an all-white unit. My father and his other four companions, they had classes with the white cadets, they had the training with the white cadets. At the end of the day, the black cadets would go to the segregated part of the of their station. They would eat lunch separately. If anyone here ever entered the Air Force or the Army, Navy, you know that the airmen, Navy fellows, they like to have a lot of fun, they like to fool around, they like to play pool, go swimming. However, the five black gentlemen, they decided that they wanted to excel. So therefore, on their off hours, they would study to show themselves approved. And therefore, classes were together. After class, weekly, there were tests. And if you've been in the armed forces, you know that the day after the test scores would be on the bulletin board at the entrance of your classroom. And it just so happens that the black Air Corpsmen, their names are always at the top and near the top of the test records. So this is kind of funny. My father told me that. One of the white corpsmen said, "How come you black guys, your name is always near the top or at the top?" My father said, "I don't know. I guess we're just smart." But they had to study real hard to prove themselves that they were just as intelligent, just as great. But my father was really a person that he loved his country, he loved his family, and he loved God. He loved Scotch Plains, New Jersey. There are many times, one instance in particular was when my father had an interview over in New York City on Sirius Radio. We all know Sirius Radio. They did an interview with my dad. And they went through, what did you do? How did you get there? Then they asked the question, where are you from? When Sirius Radio asked him that question, his face lit up. He said, "I'm from Scotch Plains, New Jersey." And the interviewer said, "Where's that small town in central Jersey?" And he went about how he had been part of the government program for the CCC camp, Conservation Corps. He had been part of that. And how he always was interested in civic opportunities. How he voted in every election in town. Once he retired from his job, he worked on the polls. He worked as urban renewal. Scotch Plains had urban renewal back in the 50s and the 60s. My father was selected to be on an urban renewal program here in Scotch Plains. My father worked on the committee for the rejuvenation of the Jerseyland Park Community Center. So my father was very involved in this little town. And he told stories how, as he grew up as a young man, he had some problems being treated like a second-class citizen, but never in Scotch Plains. He had a problem in Westville, he said he had a problem in Plainfield, but never in Scotch Plains. And it's just an honor to know that someone had to work very hard and to name a school after my dad. He would be so happy. He would have been, his birthday was October 1st. And that's a few days from now. So he would have been 102. So, there are a lot of things I can tell you about my dad, but I don't know how much time I have, so if you want to know more, I can tell you more. If you go online, you can Google my dad's story. He served on the parade committee here at Scotch Plains. He has numerous honors and proclamations. He was invited to Barack Obama's inaugurations. We have opportunity to attend the parade for the president. We attended the military ball where everyone had to wear a military uniform or a tuxedo. Goes on and on and on. But I don't want to bore you any longer, so maybe my sister has something to say. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited and happy, and this is such an honor. I feel so proud of my dad that I started making a list, thinking you even mentioned new things that my dad was involved in. So he attended Park Middle School. And my brother attended, and all of his brothers and sisters attended Park, and I attended Park, and then my son attended Park. So all the Nettie have attended there, and this is just, I'm speechless. I'm very, very excited to have you, Tanya. Thank you very much for even suggesting this. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, everyone.
In closing, that's why the legendary Tuskegee Airmen should be celebrated for their courage on and off the battlefield and their dedication to making their country a better place. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out this evening and sharing a bit of history about your dad. We are also so happy and proud to rename Park Middle School in his honor. Would anybody else like to make that? Oh, Dr. Dumas would like to make a comment.
Dr. Humorous is going to share some of the responses and plans from the Park Middle School community.
Thank you, Dr. Mass. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jocelyn Humorous. I'm the principal of Park, the soon-to-be Malcolm E. Nettingham Middle School. We are just so excited about all of these opportunities, and I'd like to thank the Nettinghams, Ms. Williams, Dr. Mass, the entire board for this incredible opportunity, because it truly is a rare and wonderful opportunity that we get to recognize not only a national hero, but a local one. Mr. Nettingham's legacy is one that we plan to celebrate and preserve for years to come at Park, soon not to be Park. And we have been brainstorming and planning a number of different ways to kick this off this year and make it official. So first, we are planning educational experiences for all of our students so they can understand the impact, the contribution, and the enduring legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen. Students will also learn about the life of Mr. Nettingham so they can fully appreciate the importance of this renaming. Second, we plan to announce this very special renaming to our student community as early as this week, Once we make the announcement, that will officially kick off our logo and mascot design contest challenge, where we will ask students to submit designs for a new school logo and a new mascot. This park has never really had a mascot. We've kind of always fallen under the greater banner, so we're really excited about this. And we're going to ask our students to be encouraged to draw inspiration by Mr. Nettingham's life and also his military service as they create these pieces. And these new designs will be featured on t-shirts, our websites, and much more. Finally, we're planning an official renaming event, which will take place on November 11th, which is Veterans Day. Very appropriate. We will feature speakers from the community and welcome as our honored guests our National Armed Forces. We have been collaborating with Master Sergeant Dan Bailey out of the Public Affairs Office in New York City, and we are planning some really special surprises for that day. So mark your calendars for November 11th, more details to come on that. And then to wrap up the day, we'll announce our student logo and contest design winners. I'm just so thrilled to be a part of Parks Renaming, and I look forward to being the principal of Malcolm E. Nettingham Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dumars. At this time, Mr. Jones, will you please do a roll call vote about renaming our school?
Ms. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Worrell,
Yes.
Ms. Brody,
Yes.
Ms. Sirianni,
Yes.
Ms. Williams,
Yes.
Ms. Winkler,
Yes.
Dr. Polakowski.
Yes. Quorum has been made, therefore the motion passes.
Woo, woo.
Congratulations to Malcolm E. Nettingham Park Middle School. That is amazing. I feel so proud and so happy. And if there is anybody who wants to make another comment, please. Well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. It was a pleasure just to hear from you all, and I thank you so much. We're proud to honor you and your family. Mr. Bass, is there anything else? At the end of your meeting?
That's the end of the word.
Thank you, Dr. Next, we move on to the business administrative report.
So no, I can follow that up. But, yeah, when I found out about this, my mouth sort of dropped. This was happening. Very excited. So I just wanted to also talk about two things on the agenda tonight. That I want to highlight is the negotiation attorney we're approving tonight, also the bond attorney. So we met with the bond attorney this week and our bond issuer, and we're just starting to kick off the planning for referendum. So referendum, and we're investigating certain projects we'll be looking to invest in. So we're going with that shortly.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Scotts Plains Family Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on Board of Education offices located at 512 Cedar Street, Scotts Plains, New Jersey. And such notice was also provided in written notice and forwarded to the Times, the Star Ledger, the Township Clerk of Scotts Plains, the Borough Clerk of Falmouth, and the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings as adopted September 1st, 2021. In accordance with the Scotts Plains Family Board of Education, Public School Bylaw 0164, 0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comment. There's a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. At a time remaining, speakers may address other matters. Speakers, please come to the podium, state your full name and the town in which you reside. Please note that board members cannot respond regarding concerns of individual students or staff members, and such matters should be addressed with the superintendent's office. So at this time, if there's any members of the public that wish to speak, make a comment, please come to the podium.
My name is Jill Peters.
Say the name.
My name is Jill Peters, and I'm the past president of Social Justice Matters.
The town in which you reside, please.
I reside in Florida,
Thank you.
but I was a resident of South Plains for a long time. I'm also here because I'm a taxpayer in New York. I have been hearing comments about the district's plans for next year. My purpose tonight is to express my support of the district's efforts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. If that's not appropriate, I can stop. But there was nobody else on it. Is that okay? In all aspects of the student and staff experience, I support the hiring of Dr. Kayakayoshi to provide professional development so the teachers and staff have the tools to turn student interactions into teaching moments rather than turning away. I had the pleasure of working with her through SJM and directly through the Institute of Teaching Diversity and Social Justice, and I can't recommend her highly enough. As far as my grandchildren, I want them to have learn the fullness of our history, the good and the bad, so that they can understand how we got here and where we are going. I was not gifted with this kind of education, but have worked to learn for myself about critical issues like systemic racism and the role that it has played and continues to play to this day. I feel a responsibility to work for change in our towns, and supporting efforts like those in the school district is part of my ongoing commitment. Our children are the future, and we want a future where we can all succeed, where values are renewed, and we can all rejoice in each other's success. We as adults need to be educated and not react emotionally to our discomfort. We need to be role models for our children so that we so that we help our children to be part of an equitable society. More efforts forward for a just society, none less, is the answer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Peters. Are there any other members?
Lisa Leibowitz, 321 Acacia Road, South Plains. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, and I'm speaking for myself and my husband, who's unable to be here at this time. I'm also feel comfortable saying I'm speaking for probably my parents who are not here, but we are out there. The belief system is defined as a set of principles or tenets which together form the basis of a religion, philosophy, or moral code. At some point, you, the Board of Education, and you, Dr. Mass, decided that you would impose a district-wide belief system into our child's public education. Here's an excerpt from your own letter as to the district's goal in hiring Dr. Joshua. Identity. Each student will demonstrate self-awareness, confidence, family pride, and positive social identities. We believe that we can do this as parents in our home through our own belief system. Diversity. Each student will express comfort and joy with human diversity, accurate language and speaking of human differences, and deep caring for human connections. Again, no offense, but we can do this in our home through our own belief system. Justice. Each student increasingly will recognize unfairness, acquire language to describe unfairness, and gain understanding that unfairness hurts. We'll do this in our home through our belief system. Action. Each student will demonstrate empowerment and the necessary skill to act with others against prejudice and/or discrimination. We'll do this at home in our belief system. These things are covered in parenting, not public education. Public education never has and never will co-parent my child. And now we have Dr. Joshi, whose worldview is one that looks at all people through the lens of race, offering a parent training, presenting to us on how we ourselves can consider our racial identities as we help our children find their racial identities, because after all, race is the most important part of human beings. We'll pass on that highly hypocritical anti-racist, anti-bias, and anti-prejudice training. No offense. If there are parents in this district who agree with Dr. Joshi's trainings and her worldview and her belief system, and they wish to have their children learn that, by all means, they have the right to do that. This is America, where despite what some people say, there has been and always will be freedom to practice a belief or religion. But in their own homes, not in public education, belief systems, worldviews, and religions belong in the home. We are a devout, Bible-believing, Messianic Jewish household who lives out our faith daily, setting a firm foundation for our children on rich biblical principles set forth through the Holy Scriptures. And what the district is trying to teach our child is a complete contradiction of how we are raising our children. And all people have been created in the image of God and have worth and value regardless of anything. That's where we start with them, and we will continue with them as they grow. We refuse to have our children focus on others through the narrow lens of race. Dr. Joshi would have us tell our daughter that as a white child who believes in Jesus Yeshua, she is inherently supremacist. But at the same time, as a Jewish child who is deeply rooted in her ethnicity and culture, she is oppressed here in America. You have no right to implement a different belief system into our children. They do not belong to you. You are not responsible for them as human beings. You are responsible for them and their academic education. Please respect all of the families who are speaking out against this, that they do not want this in their children's school. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Hello. My name is Donna from Mascot. I
Can
reside.
you please repeat that slower?
Yeah. Sure. My name is Donna DeMarsico Gendrick. I reside in Scott Plains on Beverly Avenue. I grew up in town. I moved to family in '97. I went to Brenner Park, Scott Plains High School. Happy to be back living here with my kids. My daughter just started at the preschool at School One. Please excuse my nerves. It's an emotional conversation, I think, for everyone. We all care deeply about our kids, about students, and about teachers, and about one another's lives. I consider myself a lover of Jesus and also a lover of every human around me, and I share that only in the context because I feel the need to speak loudly, advocating that every individual story is necessary to hear. So what I mean by that is that I do want my child to be an inclusive, diverse-minded, empowering individual of those who need empowerment. Dr. Joshi's hiring was an excellent hire for Scott Plains Family District. I thank you for doing that. I truly thank you. I have heard from many educators that Dr. Joshi's teachings have enlightened them and have brought a broader perspective to historical context and specifically systemic racism in our country. I am speaking from my personal story as a white, privileged, Christian, Anglo-Saxon woman growing up in a middle-class town, and as you all know, I grew up here. And so I am so thankful that I have come to realize that there is no such thing as a perfect school district. There is no such thing as complete and utter agreement in every scenario, every classroom, every parenting group. However, I think if you're going to lead from the mindset that you don't want to be you don't want to give your children the opportunity to learn different ways to think, then they are going to continue to possibly not want to partner with their teachers and classmates. And I think it really goes back to, biblically, it goes back to Jesus being there for every individual. He was there for the woman at the well as much as he was for the tax collectors. I would gladly have these discussions outside of the Board of Education meeting, and I just want to thank you all again for being here. And I also appreciate every opinion. It is a hard discussion to have. So thank you all, and I believe thank you for your
Hi, Erin McElroy-Barker, family. I actually wasn't going to say anything tonight. I was really just coming to support the Board of Education's decision to rename Park Middle School, as well as hire Dr. Josie and the training that has been going on, and the attention that this district has finally paid to the need to appreciate diversity, to address structural racism at every level of our society, and to help us raise a generation of kids who will intentionally lead us in a different direction. What happened in the middle of COVID, where a Black man was killed in the street the way that he was because he was Black, has happened a million times before. And any of us who sit in Fanwood and Scotch Plains and think that this town doesn't have its own problems with racism is really not paying attention. I grew up in a town where structural racism had decimated the town. I grew up as the minority, and I could see for myself the experience of Black people in this country every day. And as a mother raising a child in a primarily white town, it concerns me greatly that my children do not have the same exposure to diversity that I did. And they may not grow up to appreciate the uniqueness of everyone and to understand just how toxic and embedded racism is in every system in our country, including our homes. And so I don't think this is about indoctrinating our children in some religious belief. This is about teaching them about history and about our reality that we are living in every day in this country, and we see on the news every day. And this is about raising a generation of children who are intentionally different with one another, and who do recognize one another's race, but also treat each other with the same kindness and respect that we expect in our own homes. And I am not naive enough to think that whatever I teach my children in the four walls of my house is enough, because it's not. And I'm also not naive enough to think that whatever they are exposed to in my house is all they will be exposed to, because it's not. And so I'm saying this because I've been pretty disturbed by some of the flyers and the articles that have been posted recently. And I wanted to make sure that it was clear to the Board of Education and my position as a parent of 2 white children in Fanwood and a member of the Fanwood Borough Council that we fully support the endeavors of this Board of Education, as we fully support the Board of Education's participation in truth, racial healing, and transformation. And I truly hope that as a community we can recognize that being honest about our history and confronting what has happened, what continues to happen, and what we struggle with maybe internally is essential for us growing in a different direction than where we have been. So, thank you.
I am Modesta Virgil. I'm a resident of Fanwood. I also did not come prepared to speak tonight, but I just wanted to make a couple of comments. My mother was a product of segregated schools in the town of Garland, Texas. And I, as an African-American woman, did not fully understand and appreciate what that was like and what that meant until I took trips there in my childhood. I have also taken my children to visit, and my mother would talk about the town she grew up in and the school experience, and it's given them a greater appreciation. So while I appreciate parents concerns and rights to, express views and do the best they can, educate our children about the world around us. There is something to be said for people who systematically can introduce these topics and educate our children in a way that we in our own experience just may not be familiar enough with, to truly give them an empowering view of the world and the right facts. So I just want to speak in support of the Board of Education and again, support and respect everyone's views, but wanted to just state that for the record, no matter what your background, no matter what your experience, all of us can learn and all of us can learn from people who have been trained to introduce these topics in a responsible way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Virgil.
My name is Michael Rubioso.
Can you speak louder? I couldn't hear you.
My name is Michael Rubioso.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
And
having
your
us.
staff?
I'm a fan. I love the fan. I just want to start off by saying to some of the previous speakers, putting a Black Lives Matter sign or a hate has no home sign in front of your house doesn't do anything. It's not helping Black people. It's not helping anyone. Okay, and I would also ask some of these people that were up here, when you have a date night with your husbands, your wives, where do you go? Do you go to Patterson to eat? Do you go to Camden? Where do you go to eat? Where do you spend your time? Putting up a sign in front of your house, coming up here, doing a song and dance. No Black person's better off for it. Okay? So I'm tired of the nonsense, the left wing, the liberal, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to get political here. But I'm tired of people doing a song and dance, saying that they care, putting at the expense of an entire group of people, they want to feel good about themselves, and yet they offer no solutions. They hang up signs, they put ridiculous signs up in front of their houses. I'm tired from rolling my eyes at it. My other issue is with this Dr. Joshi, the person who wrote, white Christian, white Christian privilege, okay. My issue isn't so much that my son and the students in my town are going to be learning about racism. My issue is the lack of nuance and the lack of context. Is Dr. Joshi going to talk about the fact that more Arab Muslims took out more Africans out of Africa than white settlers did? Are we going to hear that? Are we going to hear about the Armenian genocide? Are we going to hear about leaving Muslims in China? Or are they going to be taught that the history of racism is black and white? And I mean that both literally and figuratively. I want my students to have context. I don't want them to think that the only evil people in this world, in this country, are white. Humanity is full of horrible things. And I expect my son, and the students in my town that I actually love a lot, regardless of the weird signs in front of the houses, I want them to learn that there's much more nuance in this world than black and white. That people are horrible to each other, and that, there's so many different things, there's so many different advantages that certain people have based on geography, based on climate, based on where they were from. How are we going to quantify it and just boil it down to, victim and oppressor? The world is too complicated for that kind of conversation. And I expect more. And I gotta say, looking at Dr. Joshi and her YouTube videos, she's a hateful person. She has a chip on her shoulder. She's not, I don't want to insult anyone, but I'm speaking just based on what she's not interesting. She doesn't talk about anything about humanity that's remotely interesting. Is she going to talk about the Enlightenment? Is she going to talk about, just the history of humanity from all aspects, or is it just going to be black and white? I hate you because you're white. I like you because you're black and you're infallible and you can do no wrong. So many things to say. So aggravated, but.
Sir, that is here 3 minutes.
Well,
You're kidding. You're definitely kidding.
I just want to wrap up by saying that if you care about a group of people, okay, you don't use them as pawns You don't use them to make yourself feel good. You don't put up a sign and say, look at me world, I'm tolerant, I'm caring. If you do something, that's fine, I'll give you all the respect in the world, okay? But that's where I stand on this issue, and I just hope, and I hope I can get some assurance that Dr. Joshi will give us, will teach my kids some nuance, and the entire history of humanity, the entire horror show that is humanity, from all different races, from all different groups of people, and that the human race is bigger than just black and white. I hope I can get some assurance from all of you on that. And I'll leave it at that, and I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for your comments. And Dr. Joshi's presentation is October 6th, starting at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. I believe the notice has gone out to sign up if you'd like to attend that presentation. Then Lincoln will find out what she's going to be teaching to the students at that time.
And just to clarify, that Dr. Joshi has been working with the administrators, she has been working with a group of teachers, and her work is around anti-bias training. She is not teaching our students, she's not bringing forth the curriculum that we are now teaching our students. It is just how we are ensuring that we are making sure that all students belong and have same access to the assets of our district, as well as all families have the same opportunities. That's what the work is about. It's not about curriculum, it's not about black or white. It's really, simply said, it's about fairness. Now, what we do teach in our curriculum is mandated by the New Jersey Learning Standards, and those things we do teach. And those are workshops that we are interested in having moving forward, so parents recognize the type of lessons that are happening in the test, because there does seem to be a need to do that. So that is something Dr. McGarry and I are working on planning for you. But just to be very clear, Dr. Joshi is not teaching our students.
Dr. Podolsky, please.
Oh, thank you. Okay, then that will close the public comment portion at this time. There is another one later in the agenda. So we'll move on to the letters to the board. There were 8 emails that were received from the public, and the appropriate administrator has responded. Next, we'll be moving into the board. Oh, pardon. Back up to committee report, pardon me, because I've overdosed on the speakers and not knowing that you can present. The committee report, then, please, Mr. Yana.
I have quite a lengthy, curriculum committee report. Yes. I have quite a lengthy committee report for curriculum committee because our last meeting was the night of the storm. We had to adjourn a little bit early, so I didn't get to read the report then. So I actually have that lengthy report plus an update from last week. The report that I was going to read last meeting was from our meeting on August 31st, and being that it was the first meeting back after the summer break, it's usually a very topical meeting with an update of summer work from most of the district supervisors. So let me try to summarize my best. The first thing that we talked about, and again this is from August 31st, was a new LLD class, Learning or Language Disabilities. And this, Andrea Mascot from Special Services presented a new course for students at Park, soon to be Nettingham Middle School, which is based on the existing needs for language and learning disabilities that the students present there currently have. So I think this really shows that we were able to kind of adapt our courses for the current needs of students. The students have severe language and or learning disabilities and require significantly modified curriculum based on student learning standards. So that is a new course for this year. And there's a recommendation for board approval. That was on the agenda last time, but we didn't put Now, I'm explaining in detail. It required training for 3 teachers, 10 hours each, and the writing of the curriculum for that class. We also did this last meeting, but we discussed the AP Music Theory textbook adoption. Wayne Millette, our fine arts supervisor, presented the textbook recommendation for the new high school course, which we also discussed last year when it was up and coming. Over the summer, they took a deep dive into planning for the course. The staff who would teach the course attended an AP Institute where multiple texts were examined and the text package was selected. And we did vote on that. The cost was $172.80 per book, and we were purchasing 12 books for students in that AP Music Theory class. We also talked in August meeting about the SEL pilot. Student Assistant Specialist Lori Ladovsky spoke about how the Student Assistant Specialists have been working on the SEL curriculum, and that's social and emotional learning, over the past year, exploring various models, considering what would be best in our district. They wanted to select a program that was skill-based, where students were learning social and emotional skills, that was culturally responsive and easy for staff to implement in their classrooms. The second step program was selected, and it's also being used in other districts that we collaborate with. It can be used in person, it can be used virtually in case that were ever needed, and it helps students develop certain social and emotional regulation skills that teachers can then reinforce in their classrooms, and also we will be able to share with parents those social and emotional learning lessons at home from a virtual platform so they can carry through those lessons at home. It's going to be piloted in all elementary schools by the student assistant specialists and teachers this year. So I know a lot of people have come and asked about SEL curriculum, so that's very exciting this year in our elementary schools. And the last agenda item is a long agenda item when the supervisors review the updates that occurred over the summer to course proficiencies and course content. So just in general, and this is all on the agenda, I believe, for tonight to improve these course proficiencies. Minor changes occurred in language arts because we switched the program, and we talked about this over the course of the last couple of years in curriculum. But the materials were switched to update to Teachers College program, which is what we're currently using. Math Explorations Middle School program was updated to reflect updated financial literacy standards. The science course was updated. There's an update to science textbooks in grades 6 to 8. And we had to also add the math testing to the program of studies, which everyone knows Dr. McGarry recently communicated about. We've been talking about it over the past year. It's an assessment of progress measurement. Okay. There's so many updates that were talked about that happened over the summer. To try to summarize, Erin Mullman spoke about the Gifted and Talented program, the Quest program. It was adjusted. The units of study were adjusted slightly. 2 units were collapsed into one semester since they were similar. And a new unit will be designed for the second half of 8th grade. Revision also allowed considering opportunities for more student voice and choice. Kate Rosender spoke about preschool and K curriculum changes, looking at instructional technology, how to make it meaningful in this young age group. She talked about using Seesaw for two-way communication between school and home, which is an app on student iPads. And for pre-K, they also are going to have lessons in social and emotional learning, which is great. So she talked about a skill-based program called Al's Pals that the district will be using. For fine arts, Wayne Millette talked about working on 2020 updates to visual and performing arts standards throughout the curriculum. I already mentioned about AP Music Theory and how teachers attended the AP Institute, and the department wrote curriculum for the other 2 new AP courses that the board approved last year, Global Art Immersion and Global Design. Big changes for the health and PE curriculum, reported by Ryan Miller, are that the standards have been updated in 2020 and are now going to be enacted. The health curriculum, in the family life lessons are now going to be introduced in 4th grade for state standards. And I'll have another update on health and PE for the meeting we had last week. Language arts, pacing guides were updated. 8th grade curriculum was looked at to considering how we could incorporate more student choice and increasing the diversity of authors and titles across the board. In 11th grade, and this was an update from Liz McKenna, our language arts supervisor. In 11th grade, they are looking at the British literature course, which, and will continue to do so over the course of the school year to determine whether anything should be tweaked or changed to allow for the literature to be more accessible. She talked about how that's not the most popular course and maybe considering, what students are really looking for, what type of literature they're looking for in language arts courses moving forward. In math, our math supervisor, Sarah Paley, gave an update. The summer work focused on learning acceleration and assessing where students are. In 6 to 8, there's a focus on math explorations and incorporation of financial literacy standards. Gita Faria, our science supervisor, spoke about science over the summer. K to 5, they looked at the pacing guides. There's a climate change mandate that has to be climate change lessons that we have to implement. So they're thinking of how to integrate those into the curriculum, change the order of some units due to how to access, they change the order of some units based on that mandate. In 6 to 8, 3 units of study were updated. She talked about how science is approached from a storyline point of view, also incorporating the climate change mandate in those grades, infusing social justice and diversity in the curriculum, and also looking at coherence of the curriculum moving into high school. Social studies and media, the K to 5 curriculum was altered based on changes to the standards. They had to change certain grade levels in which some social studies content was being taught. Also focused on incorporating identity and diversity, a group of teachers convened to discuss diversity and equity in the classroom, the examination of a new law passed in 2021 for equitable and inclusive classrooms. So Dr. Nass made reference to that, to the law that we have to make sure that we're incorporating into the curriculum. How to build a classroom that reflects this law, so how to operationalize it. Special services, I already, extended school year always takes place for the students who have that as part of their IEP, so that happened. And special services was also focused on planning to help students transition successfully back to in-person learning this month. World languages and ESL, Lisa Howard, our world language supervisor, spoke about that they were very busy revising and updating the 14 world language high school courses that take place, focus on being more explicit in topics of diversity and inclusion. So for example, in French classes, not solely teaching about French in France, but acknowledging all of the French-speaking countries all over the world and incorporating those cultures. They updated units on immigration, and considering how language is always changing and how to use non-binary language in the world language courses. Looked at how Level 4 Accelerated and 5 AP are aligned with College Board curricula, and envisioned Spanish heritage speaker classes to ensure that the curriculum tells a story of a native heritage speaker. And there were minor updates to ESL curriculum based on standard changes. So that was all a very lengthy August meeting, and then just a quick update from last week. I talked about some of the updates to the course proficiencies, but we got an update to that update. I talked about health and PE, but basically proficiencies for sexual health education for 9th grade were moved to 8th, and I believe this was statewide, right? Statewide. And then the 12th grade shift to more focus on general wellness. Math, we talked last year about the board approved Everyday Math 4, so there had to be updates to the written curriculum based on that change in the primary resource being used. And the math department continues to look for cross-curricular connections with other areas like social studies. And as far as science, we got an additional update that their duplicate proficiencies were removed to ensure the integration of sciences as well as engineering. I talked about the use of the storyline approach in science. Teachers had professional development in this approach. There's more of a focus on critical thinking for the students. And just changes to instead of just focusing on one science each year in middle school, talked about more integration, such as in grades 6 to 8, they would be exposed to life science, earth science, and physical science, instead of with a mixed focus, instead of singling those things out year by year. Okay, Dr. McGarrett gave a remote learning update and just informed the committee that 3 additional teachers were hired for remote learning for students in quarantine. One teacher has been in the district and 2 others are new to the district. This is something that our district is doing uniquely to support students who have to be in quarantine due to COVID-19. They get that support from a virtual teacher. So that is for elementary. Middle school students in quarantine actually join a Google Classroom that is monitored throughout the day. And in high school, the teachers do have the capacity to connect, to have the students in quarantine join via the Google Meet audio while the teacher is teaching live. And then, of course, the teachers are also providing after-school help or any supplemental help for students in quarantine across the district. And the last thing that we did at the meeting last week was take a look at AP enrollment demographics. Dr. McGarrett has been looking at this for quite a while and shared a recent update with the committee. We're looking at enrollment data of AP classes by race, by ethnic, and gender groups, and seeing any gaps and considering how to make pathways to certain AP courses equitably for all groups across the district. That's it. Sorry, those 2 meetings put into
No, but you have a lot of information, I was just saying, it's 2 meetings for a time. Is there any other committee reports to be read?
Right. I'll start with finance. The August 30th report, Christopher reported on the business office transition, and the year closed successfully and the audit started. He has met with each staff member, and they're all working very well together. Christopher is also setting up a budget model that will go back 3 years, so a normal year is included in his analysis because last year was not a normal year as far as finance is concerned. We discussed what our expectations are of the finance meetings, committee meetings, and we had some discussion with the revenue changes, new legislation, and any associated costs, operating costs, and for control such as lawsuits, key metrics against other similar districts and long-term goals. We also discussed the tweaking of the procedure of the reading of the business agenda and the items at the public meetings. Something that was very interesting, there are historical documents in a vault dating back to the 1800s. Primarily, these are student attendance records, and Christopher was going to go through some of the older documents to see if there's anything worth saving. We are only required to pull documents for 7 years, so this is a very long overdue going through papers, but it's quite interesting that the papers were that old. And so that is our August 30th report. September 21st, we discussed regarding Chapter 44, and the submission of previous documents, and the documents had to be revised and resubmitted. Chapter 44 is a change in the healthcare contributions of the staff, where it changed from a percentage of premium to a percentage of salary. So the costs are dramatically different, and there's certain paperwork that has to be submitted to the state for that. We also discussed Dude Solutions, which is on the agenda tonight, and we're hiring them to do an inventory of our equipment, make recommendations on capital projects. This whole thing will help handle job orders. It's a one-time fee of $82,000. With this, we won't need another program called FX Direct, which is a cost of $6,300. We also do not need to use private architects for equipment assessments with the savings of $18,000. We talked about the food service account, and in 2021, it created a large net loss, and we discussed strategies to help create a better year this year for that. And we're signing up for the National School Lunch Program next year. We did have flood damage in all the schools, and all that was submitted to the insurance company. And the procedure, you have to submit it to the insurance company first, and whatever is denied by the insurance company can then be submitted to FEMA. And then we discussed the timing of a referendum, and we decided to move forward. And that's that. Should I move right on to community relations? Since I'm here. Also, this is from August 31st. We met with the new communication consultants from Laura Bishop Communications, and their focus will be to help us with media relations. They have a unique perspective because they are former journalists. They will be helping with a standard newsletter format, which will focus not only on general district information, but will also focus on some interesting tidbits about staff, innovative curriculum programs, and so on. They will look for opportunities to connect with not only our internal stakeholders, but also our outside community as well. We identified some areas that we would like to explore, such as broadcasting our instructional updates, as well as advocating with our legislators. And we will do regular communications from the district and connect to different media to do that. What we did learn last year through that, the communications, the questionnaire that we had sent out, is that the staff wants a window into the outcome of the superintendent liaison meetings. The one-to-one feature has given us more opportunities to create more innovative content. Internal and external community want more understanding of our district finances. We did add a frequently asked FAQ, was added to the website to help us with anticipated questions and information needed from the public. And communications from the principals is being done more collaboratively, and the public really just like the communications from the principals. So that was August 31st, and September 22nd was right for strategic planning. So we did discuss the strategic planning, and we do have a draft of the communication plan from the consultant, which we had before. What we're going to do, we're going to incorporate the findings from that with the findings from the strategic planning to have a more comprehensive communication plan that we're going to start. And some initiatives that we will implementing shortly are those monthly report drafts. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brody. Is there another committee report to be heard? If there are no more committee reports, then we'll strategic planning. I know Dr. Massey did mention it, but just to reiterate, we have approximately 130 participants that include community members, faculty, staff, and then last night was the first meeting. The PowerPoint that we presented is on the district website, so you'd like to look at that. And our next meeting will be at the high school, October 19th at 7. And then the third wrap-up meeting will be at Terrell Middle School, November 16th. If no more committee reports are available at this time, we'll move on to the board motions. Dr. Mass, will you do the curriculum report?
Yes, I'd like to move that the Board of Education approve the revised out-of-district SY for 21-22 and the ESY 21 placements.
We have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Flora. Second. Thank you, Mr. Bodie. Any question or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
I'd like to move that the Board of Education acknowledges the receipt of the graduation verification report of the class of 2021.
I have a motion. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any question or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
And
Motion carries.
And following up from Mrs. Sirianni's report, I would like to move that the Board of Education approves the following health and physical education, visual and performing arts, language arts literacy, science, and mathematics proficiencies.
I have a motion. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brody. Any question or further discussion? Can I have a roll call, Mr. Jones?
Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
Mr. Borah?
Yes.
Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Ms. Sirianni?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Winkler?
Yes.
Dr. Polk?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Jones? Will you do the question on the phone?
Yes. I would move that the Board of Education approves the superintendent's recommendations for personnel on the personnel report that we discussed in exec this evening.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Soriano. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Any further question or discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
Mrs. Borah?
Yes.
Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Ms. Sirianni?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Winkler?
Yes.
Dr. Polk?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Mass. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, market business report.
Okay, so I'll go through these. So the first, the first motion is staff training to approve at every board meeting. Second is just related to related service events, and we have special education students that are part of the board agenda. Number 3 is again additional vendors for our leader vendors that have to be on the agenda. Number 4 is for professional services, and this is for district-wide lead testing. So we're going to expand the lead testing that we've done at the district and what we've done in the past. Number 5 is, Ms. Brody talked about the Dude Solutions. Number 6, what I mentioned in my report, is the bond council. Number 7 is a rule to be in one county co-op, which is basically just they do bids for different items, say school supplies, and then that gives us the lowest cost. This resolution allows us to purchase from them. Number 8 is what I mentioned, the negotiating services. Number 9 is for your standard monthly reports, so monthly board secretary report. 10 is our bank accounts and the activity in the bank accounts. 11 is to pay the bills. And number 12 is a indoor air quality monitoring that we implemented for COVID. Quarterly test that we will have the Environmental Safety Management Corporation starting this quarter. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. We have, can you read the move? So moved. Thank you, Ms. Brody. And for a second, second for, thank you, Ms. Borah. Any questions or discussion on any of those 4 items? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Jones. Board policies.
Move that the board approve second reading and adoption for policy 1648.11 control. We'll discuss in further detail below.
So Mrs. Winkler has made the motion.
Second.
Second, thank you, Mrs. Burke. Any other question or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Thank you. Is there any new board business? Any new board business? Other board business? Are there any liaison reports? Mrs. Bauer?
Yes, the Garden State Coalition of Schools met last week, and we had a fabulous speaker, Dr. Lily Edwards, who is an emeritus professor from Drew University in history and African American studies, a Phi Beta Kappa from Oberlin College. And she really talked about the inclusive K-12 curriculum, and it was a very engaging, and that was the main part of the meeting was her presentation. There was some discussion among the superintendents and the board members about the openings of schools and current challenges, and it's not that they're not writing potential laws, but because of the election this fall, there's only so much going on. It's hard to summarize her presentation, but it was, I thought these comments from a presentation she did for the New Jersey Council for the Social Studies kind of reflect the kinds of comments that people were putting in the chat. I copied the chat. At this meeting, and it said that Dr. Edwards does a great job of showing how students can address current events using historical perspectives. Thought-provoking, she framed history by providing more questions than answers, and in a way that would help our students to be inquisitive, she kept the audience very engaged. I know you were there, Dr. Mass, so I don't know if you want to add any comments about Dr. Edwards, but she did a phenomenal job using primary sources, really to, again, maybe take a current event and look at primary sources through history, early newspaper articles, and different kinds of primary sources. So it was fascinating. And she shared sample kinds of lessons where you're using documents like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence to talk about the kinds of common values we have. So that's a quick summary.
I think we just said it was that presentation that really just reinforced how important it is to share the lessons that we are teaching in school. It's what we're doing now is what we have been consistently doing, and I think it's just a matter of communicating that we are all on the same page and want the same thing for our kids.
So in the Garden State Coalition of Schools, I believe we have over 200 districts represented. And we have a nice audience, and again, people who were there were very pleased they were able to attend. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Any other liaison reports? Seeing none, we will move on to requests to attend workshops. Well, I am. I'm going to request to attend the New Jersey School Board Delegates Assembly, which is November 20th from 9 to 12. It's a Saturday. It is a virtual meeting and there's no cost. I'm not a representative voting member, but I'm not participating in the delegate assembly. So if anybody else is interested, there's still time to sign up. Email me to the district. And then I would also like to attend the Union County School Board's meeting. It's either virtual or in person on October 13th. I'm choosing to go in person. It's from 6 to 9 in Norwood. But if you don't choose to go in person, you may attend virtually. And the information is also in that email as well. I'm going to be attending.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Do we need to sign up for this meeting if we want to attend the workshop this year?
Well, we've already said that we were.
We already registered,
Yeah.
right?
I think we have to do that back in August.
And they changed it as a small fee, it's not that many people who want one in the past.
This is virtual.
Yes, in the past it was individual.
And like, Karen will be joining you at the New Jersey School Board Association meeting after the voting.
Okay, so there's two different boxes, check the one that you're the.
Thank you, then I see the emails.
If the top one is road, I will check the bottom one, which is not road. We'll handle that. Very good, okay, so let's do this. Okay, 3 OBE is the approval of the resolution for the week of respect, which is October 4th through the 8th. 4 OBD is the School Violence Awareness Week, October 18th through 27th. 5 OBD is the National Principals Month, which is October. 6 OBD is the tenured teachers, administrators, and support staff resolutions. And if I can have a motion to approve these. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the resolution? Aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? Sorry, thank you very much. Next, we have approval of the minutes. And we have minutes from September 1st, the regular board meeting, executive session, and September 1st, the public meeting. And I have a motion to accept those minutes from September 1st. So, thank you, Mrs. Brody. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Boyle. Any question or discussion about those minutes? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? Motion carried to accept the minutes. Okay, at this time, we're going for a second public comment session. In accordance with the Scotch Plains Family Public School Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. Maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Speakers state their full name and town in which they reside. Please note that board members cannot respond regarding concerns with individual students or staff members. Such matters should be addressed at the superintendent's office. And if you're ready to make a public comment, please come up to the podium, state your name and the town in which you reside.
Amanda Hughes, Scotch Plains.
Thank you.
So I'm going to make this a little bit lighter. I know last time was very heated, the last 15 minutes. And I understand the intention of it all for each individual. I think it's a bigger conversation. So a few just little light things. I wanted to address a couple things that were brought up before on this side of the room. School lunch. I know we talked about this a little bit last night in the strategic planning, but being able to have a gluten-free option where you don't need to have an allergy would be awesome, because then you have to go through all the allergy, everything with the nurse's office. And I know people were saying last night that they just would like gluten-free. So that would be great. With the French class, I loved that they're going to be teaching what's like in other places, not just France. So that was very cool. Part of when I moved here, 7 months before the pandemic, I really liked that math explorations was something very different. And as we were talking about communication, I was thinking, how cool would it be? I don't know if anybody remembers this TV show a few years ago, but the TV show Lie to Me. And it was teaching about body language, which is something that could be such a cool class for people, for law enforcement, for business, just to learn about body language, politics. I mean, in the show, they used to show like different presidents and their facial expressions. But that could be very cool. Two other things. So monthly COVID tests, I don't really understand that. If anybody could clarify just how monthly tests help. I don't understand. So we're doing daily, I understand weekly. I don't understand monthly. So if there is any clarification on that. And then lastly, the strategic planning. I was there last night. I thought we had some really great conversations. I wanted to give a little constructive feedback. I think the group sessions felt really good and a little bit rushed. We were getting some good ideas out there and trying to find solutions, but we kept having people come in and say, okay, we're up for time, we're up for time. But yet the slideshow presentation right before felt really long and very hard for people after working all day and being with their kids. Just, it was a little tough. So being able to shorten that a little bit and lengthen the actual strategic planning of what are some problems and what are some solutions and how can we come up, because the conversations were happening, but it just had to be shortened. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there another comment?
Good evening, Timothy Mel, Scotch Plains. Many know this, I go by John too, and I think that's why I've always been in the role of trying to be an ambassador in my life, because I've always been conflicted to find what name people call me. So call me Tim or call me John. I'll respond to both. Everyone needs to take a deep breath. I'm not going to talk about anything sticky right now. But I'd like to try to use my role as trying to be a good communicator and ambassador to explain maybe why there's some discomfort in the community. I'd like to take a poll. Who in the public here agrees that we should be teaching diversity in school? I think everyone should raise their hand, right? I think what some of the parents are a little upset about is having a outspoken, very provocative person teaching that, and we should have communicated that a little bit better. Some of the public statements by this teacher rubbed some people the wrong way. I don't know her, so I'm not going to speak about how good of a teacher she is or she isn't. I do trust that the board makes good decisions. I think that her public statements are just very concerning for some teachers. But I think all of the parents would agree that teaching diverse subjects in school is important. But I believe that we teachers is to lead by example. And I think there's times in Dr. Joshi's life that she has not led by example by some of those very provocative public statements. So I think that's a way to try to draw the crowds together to try to explain some of the discomfort there. People get very passionate and nervous when they stand up here at the podium and speak, and it's very hard to convey that. I'd like to congratulate the renaming of Park Middle. I think that's very, very important. I think that the story that the son stated kind of explains why a lot of people moved to this town. I will agree with the other father that is a little bit displeased by the hate has no place here in Scotch Plains, because that is why a lot of people moved here. And that's one of the provocative statements in this town that doesn't exist for many people. They chose to move to this town because it is an inclusive town. The Jewish people sought refuge in Scotch Plains a while ago because they were being patronized in Westfield. That is why Shackamaxon Country Club was a very Jewish-run organization, because they were not allowed to attend other country clubs around that time. So I there's a little explanation there. Just to talk about communications, we're still waiting on an update from our consultant. I understand we renewed the contract. What are the next steps? Maybe we're owed a presentation on what the next steps are in that communications plan, and maybe what the results of those focus groups were and the surveys were. We do struggle to communicate. I think communication is the basis of many issues we have. Just tonight we witnessed a miscommunication where it was said that Dr. Joshi is teaching students. She is not. Thank you, Dr. Mass, for correcting that statement. It's very important we're very clear about this. I hear my time is up. Thank you, Doug. That is all. Have a good evening.
Hi, my name is Kemi Turka from Planning. So, we see what is going on in this world, not only in America, like everybody's against everybody. This liberal Democrats against Republicans, and all of this, and everybody's very passionate about their beliefs. Well, it's strange enough. I'm really happy about the renaming of the park middle school, and well done. And I hope to see for the high school as well. I want to tell you a little bit, I hear these stories about Westfield. I didn't know that way because before coming here, we were considering Westfield to move to, right? You know why? Do you know, have you heard of Principal Derek Nelson? You do, you did. Who didn't? Have you? Okay. So I heard about him when he was still alive when I was in Romania. Do you think I heard about him because of the skin color? No. I heard it because I heard that he was a veteran. I heard that he was fair. He was amazing principal. And to me, I feel like school is one of the most important, for a child to define his individuality among, within this, the people around him. What has Mr. Malcolm E. Nettingham special? His character, his will to succeed, his fight. What I'm trying to tell you is that character precedes anything else, religion, race, anything. This is what my children should be taught. And history should be taught. I'm not saying that. I learned about history in my country, and everybody should know the bad and the good and everything, right? But what I'm trying to say is my children the first year, they had 2 teachers. They came home and we discussed how kind they were or how strict they were, what the rules they imposed. And at the end of the year, or whatever, by the end of the year, they never mentioned one single time that one of them, they didn't mention their skin color. And we come from a country that there is no black person in my country. And as I mentioned before, we were a communist country, it wasn't the black or it was still the white person, whatever. They were communists, right? But we were Christians. And Dr. Joshi, I'm sorry, it's hateful. Now in their school, Christmas is not called Christmas, it's called holiday. But every other, Jewish holidays are celebrated. Any other minorities are celebrating Indian. And I'm fine with it. I'm not here to change anything. But why do you have to avoid the Christmas? Just because somebody has, Dr. Joshi has a problem with it, or, all of this. When we're talking about inclusion, let's talk kindness and respect for each other. That's all I'm asking. And am I asking for that much? I don't want
Heights, I don't wanna work with you because you all have your beliefs and you think your children deserve to know specific things. And I agree. But let's not, what example do we set up for our kids when we fight with each other to what we need to teach in school? Did you have this problem a long time ago when school meant education only? You didn't. It was a pleasure to be a principal, it was a pleasure to be a superintendent, it was a pleasure to... What are we now?
Yeah, that is your time. If you could finish.
I know. Thank you.
Your comments, Ms. Spfboe.
Hi, Gina Berry, Fanwood, New Jersey.
Thank you.
So I'm sitting here listening to the different comments, and I really wasn't going to say anything. I like to just come and listen. But let me start on a light note. I just want to agree with Amanda. The strategic plan yesterday was really great. The small session group, I think, should have been longer. We had some good discussions, but we weren't rushing because there wasn't enough time. So hopefully the next one, we'll have a lot more time to discuss. But as I sit back and I listen to the different comments about diversity training or about Dr. Joshi, it's very upsetting as an African-American woman with children that is in this school district to hear parents come up here and talk about how certain things should not be taught in school. Now, we all have the right to teach our kids what we want to teach our kids at home. This is a public school. It has to teach every single student, regardless of who that student is. If you do not like what the public school is teaching, we all have the right to remove our kids and put them in public school or homeschool them. I am in 100% support of the district to make sure that our school district is equal for all students. All students, regardless of who that person is, okay? It is so important for our kids to understand each other's culture. This is the only way we can learn from each other. We cannot learn from each other if we hide in our corners and only want to believe what has been taught to us as children. We all went through school, we were all not taught what we should have learned, including me. There's things that I'm learning that I have not learned when I was in school because it wasn't taught. It is so important for us to really teach our children. This is the only way this country will get better. It's not about a Republican or Democrat, it's just about the human rights. And a right for our children to understand what happened then, what's happening now, and they can learn from that and hopefully change the pattern as they get older and become adults. So I support you. The real parents support you. We support the training of the teachers and administrators for training of anti-bias training. And if anyone else have a better person that they can recommend to do these trainings, please let us know. But right now, this is the person that the district hired. This person is not teaching our children. They're teaching the parents, not the parents, actually, I don't even think that is October 6th. They're teaching the staff about making sure that children are equal in the classroom and not judging them based on the color of their skin. And it's easy to say that's not happening in our district, and it's easy to say that we moved into this city, the community, because because there's no hate in this community. Well, let me let you know, it exists. And if you don't think it exists, unfortunately, this is the problem, because it does exist. Maybe you're not the person doing it, but it exists in our community. The community that I love, and I have been here for 17 years. And I'm not planning on going anywhere. But let me tell you, hate exists in our Fanwood Scott Plain community. And it needs to stop. It really just needs to stop. Enough is enough. We can agree to disagree, but not being able to have a conversation and talk to one another and hearing my point of view and saying, okay, I may not have experienced that point of view, but I'm going to respect that it is happening. And when I say it's happening, it's happening. So I would appreciate all of the people that talk about there's no hate. How about if you stand up and show me that? Because it's happening.
Excuse me.
Okay, I'm sorry, my time is up. But thank you, and I support it. And take the comments and get off.
Hi, Ashley Gonzalez, Scott Plains. So first, I would like to thank our teachers and specialists and staff for all their hard work making this final school year a great one, knowing it's not easy, meeting each child on different levels, but they come up with grace. Secondly, I'd like to show appreciation for the recognition of Hispanic Heritage Month throughout our schools. It's a beautiful thing that we can all celebrate each other. I would also like to commend the remaining part of the school. And lastly, I would like to thank the board for their continued efforts for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm encouraged after the strategic planning meeting, and I'm sure there's more things to follow. And I would like to say that we all need to realize that just because we don't see it or it's not happening to our children doesn't mean that that's the experience of every child. I can tell you personally that just last week, my son was called a racial name in the school. So it does exist, and we are doing the work collectively as a board, as parents, as teachers, so that no child has to feel that way when they're in the classroom learning. And anybody that doesn't think that that's important should open their eyes. Because every child deserves the right to be able to sit in the classroom, walk in the hallway, and not have to feel hate or be called names just because of the color of their skin. It exists, and we need to do better to make sure that we can stop it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there another public comment? You can come up to the podium.
Good evening, I'm Natasha Wilson Berthold. I'm in Fanwood on St. John's Place. I've never been to a board meeting before, so thank you for having the public. I just wanted to add my support to having Dr. Joshi. I don't know anything about her yet, but I have an open mind, and I appreciate the efforts to educate our teachers and staff on diversity and inclusion and systemic racism. I know it's a huge problem. I work in publishing, and we've had so many things come up from that. But I just wanted to say that I'm a person who supports having people come in and educate all of us. I did sign up to listen on October 6th. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I don't know what I'm going to think. I will absolutely, see how it goes, and but very delighted to have the opportunity, and I'm so excited to hear about the renaming of Parky Middle. I had no idea when I walked in here that was going to be happening, so thank you. That was just, I have a lot of family who are so excited about that when I tell them. So anyway, it's been a wonderfully eye-opening experience to be here, and
Just wanted to lend my voice since I've never participated in pretty much anything. We'll try to do better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Johnson. Is there any other public speakers this evening? Seeing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting and move on to the upcoming meetings, which is Tuesday, October 12th, which is board meeting tonight at 7:30. It will be virtual, handed by the League of Women Voters and PTA Council. Thursday, October 14th, the open agenda board meeting is 7:30 p.m. here at the board offices. And Thursday, October 28th, for the regular public meeting at 7:30. Do we have any remarks for the good of the order? Mrs. Goro.
I know it's been said about the strategic plan. This is my third strategic. I think we've had three, so I've had three as a parent and two as a board member. I just want to thank all the parents that were able to get on the list and that did show up, and for those that were in attendance, for those that are thinking or debating about coming to the next two, I encourage you to please do it. It is the way that we collectively shape the plan for our future, what is important, and conversations like tonight. I agree with Gina and Amanda about, having that time, that conversation is so important to learn and to hear everybody's thoughts and insight. That was just part one of a three-part process, and there's together cohesively along with what Deb was saying in regards to the communications, taking all these aspects together to make a full cohesive communications plan as part of the outcome of the strategic plan itself. So I just want to say thank you. I love this. I got so excited last night. I thought I was a little too chatty and a little strange. I get excited. I think it is such an amazing process for the community to come together and lend all of our voices collectively. So thank you, and stay tuned for outcomes.
Thank you, Ms. Any other remarks? Mrs. Bauer?
Yes, I want to call attention to the varsity tennis team. They did very well this year. They came in third place, the top behind 10th place in Westfield. But I want to particularly highlight one of the students, and I'd like to read you something that the coach, Luke Peters, said about this student. The top student in the tournament from Scotch Plains family was Diane Ninewell at second singles. She won her flight and is county champion at the second singles for the second straight year. The most impressive part about this is that Diane defeated a senior from 10th place who is ranked significantly higher in national tennis rankings, and who also easily defeated Diane in our team match less than 2 weeks ago. Diane won the match in 3 sets on perseverance, heart, and cool-headedness. And we just wanted to recognize her this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Mrs. Williams?
Thank you. I just want to personally thank everyone for the positive comments surrounding the renaming of Park Middle School. It's exciting. I think Dr. Dumas left, but her excitement on the activities on November 11th, it's going to be amazing. So, I mean, if you can try to be there, try to be there. I'm so excited and so proud of this community.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. You all are very excited. Any other comments? Dr. Mayo?
So this weekend was the first weekend that we had our band festival, and our Scotch Plains band marching band was able to perform under the lights. Duran Thomas, the marching band director, said that he could not have been happier with the overall light. The smiles on the kids' and parents' faces were truly incredible. My staff and I had hearts full with pride to be part of such an amazing night for our school and the community. Thank you so much Board of Education for always supporting us in our endeavors. It means so much to know that we have your support. And from Wayne Millette, the Fine Arts Supervisor, he said it went really well. We had 9 schools from around the state participate in the event. The SPF students took a larger role in the organization of the event this year, which made it particularly special. Watching them work with the other groups and help manage the event reminded me of how students can rise to the occasion when given the opportunity. And he is going to have some videos to share regarding that event, and I'm looking forward to that, and I will share it with the members of the board. On a different topic, to follow Amy Bora on the strategic planning, it was really designed in the way where it was front-loaded so everyone would know the state of the district. And recognizing that it was thick in content, I could see where it could be hard if you had a long day of work. And then the after sessions were designed to be very short because the next 2 sessions are just focused on the group work. So there will be no further big PowerPoints to start. So please come back and join us in those next 2 sessions. And just listening to the comments and the concerns and the deep level of care that everyone has in the room about the work that we're doing in the district, all for the benefit of the kids, I really do hear that what we want is the same thing. And there are misunderstandings. I think what Mr. Neal said is that information will really bring us together. And just an example, though Dr. Joshi's book has Christian privilege in the title, her message is really about understanding people from all different backgrounds. So it's not about not having Merry Christmas, but it's also understanding that other people have sacred holidays and taking the time to know what those are so we connect together. So please come and hear her on the 6th, right? 6th. And I think then we'll continue the conversation. What's most important is we keep talking and we keep trying to understand each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. So if there's no other motion for the order, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. So move. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Wilfar. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.